the coordinator of the Global Health Diplomacy. Is the coordinator of the United States government activities to combat HIV/AIDS and U.S. Special Representative for Global Health Diplomacy. Ambassador Beck is a world-renowned medical expert and leader in the field of HIV and AIDS. Her 3-decade-long career has focused on HIV immunology, vaccine research, and global health. As the U.S. Global AIDS Coordinator, Ambassador Beck oversees the implementation of U.S. President's Emergency Plan AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, the largest commitment by any nation to combat a single disease in history, as well as all U.S. government engagement with the global front to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Serving as the U.S. Special Representative for the Global Health Diplomacy, she aligns the U.S. government's diplomacy with foreign assistance program that addresses global health challenges and accelerates progress towards achieving an AIDS-free generation, ending preventable child and maternal deaths, and preventing, detecting, and responding to infectious diseases. The special session is a youth-led acknowledgement, sharing forum to engage the key stakeholders around the importance of meaningfully engaging youth, adolescent girls, and young women in the HIV response and highlighting some of the successes and barriers facing young youth leaders leading the church on the continent. The world is a home to more young people aged between 15 to 24 years now than any other time in the history. Simultaneously, the world committed for the first time in 2015 to a universal agenda for sustainable development and presidented ambition, including target 3.3 to end AIDS epidemic by 2030. But the global community will never be able to deliver on ending AIDS if young people are not fully engaged and in the lead, since the young people are the most effective engine for social change. To end AIDS by 2030 requires that the root causes that put young people at risk of HIV new infections, poor health outcomes, and AIDS-related deaths, including gender-related, socio-economic, and other inequalities, limited information, discrimination, exclusion, and violence are effectively addressed. AIDS is the largest and the leading cause of death among the young people aged between 10 to 24. In Africa, especially among the young women and young key population who continue to be disproportionately affected by HIV, which is also the second leading cause of death among the young people globally. Young women are twice as likely to acquire HIV as young men. A young bulge in Africa threatens to increase the new HIV infections further. Unprotected sex is the most common route of HIV infection among the young people, as well as low HIV and sexual health knowledge, which is a key barrier to reducing HIV infections among young people. Young people have the potential to be great peer educators and to help in the design of HIV-related services and programs. Technology and social media are consistently being proven as effective ways of engaging young people in sharing HIV knowledge. To tackle these persisting barriers, more efforts are needed to challenge the harmful laws, policies, and practices that negatively impact young people's access to services including age, spousal consent requirements, early forced marriages, lack of comprehensive sexual education, lack of harm reduction service, and criminalization against young key population. Support for the youth participation in decision-making spaces must shift from tokenism to meaningful engagement, and youth participation in the community response to HIV must be acknowledged, nurtured, and adequately resourced. Young people are able to lead effective change in the fight against HIV infections when they stand up to end the silence, stigma, and shame surrounding HIV status disclosure. when they are equipped and well provided with knowledge and information about HIV and AIDS, and given platform to be able to put their knowledge into practice. When they are provided with youth-friendly spaces and health services characterized by youthful medical practitioners whom they are able to openly discuss issues relating to their health. When the organizations leading the fight on HIV finds it worth to directly and meaningfully partner with the young people to end the epidemic. I also believe that young people living with HIV should also be engaged in the fight against HIV new infections, since they best can convey the message that individuals must make efforts to ensure no one else contracts HIV. And they can be able to effect the roles of role models by being able to portray and discuss on how to live a healthy and productive life with HIV. They are also in a position to be able to measure in contributions to design and implement on the prevention care and efforts. As we look at all these discussions, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to introduce to you our co-moderators, Cedric Ninihazwe, the program manager, Y Plus from Burundi. The Dreams Ambassador, Kefa from Zimbabwe. Distinguished delegates, as we look at all these realities, I wish to introduce our high-level speaker, Ambassador Deborah Beggs, the U.S. Global AIDS Coordinator, to be able to keep this conversation going forward.
Wow, this is exciting for me. So I'm going to be brief so that I can spend the rest of the session listening to you all. I want to acknowledge Her Excellency, the First Lady of Botswana, and the senior leadership from UNAIDS. I want to...
Our children are dying! Wake up! 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 Our children are dying! Wake up!
We are here today because we are afraid. As women living with HIV, as mothers, as young people, that the deadly gap in pediatric treatment access is not being treated like the crisis it is. Funders and governments are failing children and adolescents with HIV. We are here today because only 54% of the 1.8 million children living with HIV have treatment access, and many of our countries' coverage is much worse. We will not accept an HIV response that assumes that children born exposed to HIV must wait months and months for their HIV test results. It is a disgrace that only 52% of children born exposed to HIV have access to early infant diagnostic tests, which within the first 2 months of their lives. It is a disgrace that 300 children are dying every day from AIDS. We do not accept a HIV response that drives pregnant women away from treatment programs because retention support, laws to follow up, prevention led by communities, and investment in community-led interventions are not fully funded. Ambassador Parks, flood funding has significantly affected PEPFAR programs negatively. Flood funding means programs haven't aggressively scaled up the immediate point of care testing that saves the lives of children exposed to HIV. By flood funding denies early linking to treatment and care for children who are exposed to HIV. It means that PEPFAR implementing partners are not spending money on family-friendly and key population-friendly service delivery models that ensure that children have access to point-of-care early infant diagnosis. It's a shame that it only takes 20 minutes at most for an adult to know their HIV status, and it takes sometimes more than 6 months for a child to be diagnosed. Pharma must also drop the price of pediatric treatment now.
Nous, adolescentes et jeunes vivant avec le VIH, demandons le respect de notre droit à la vie. Oui, une vie épanouie, en bonne santé et avec une longue espérance de vie. Cela passe par un accès au traitement de première ligne optimisé, mais aussi de deuxième et de troisième ligne quand nous nous trouvons en situation d'échec thérapeutique ou de résistance. Cela passe par un accès à la mesure de la charge virale et aux tests de résistance. Nous, adolescentes et jeunes vivant avec le VIH, avons besoin de services qui vont bien au-delà du simple accès au traitement, tels que l'accompagnement et l'éducation par les pairs fournis par les différentes associations communautaires. Nous, adolescents, avons besoin de services de santé sexuelle et reproductive adaptés dans un environnement non stigmatisant et discriminant. Nos vies ont de la valeur. Vous ne devez jamais l'oublier.
Thank you. So now I'm going to change what I'm talking about because they're absolutely right. 50% of the children, and mostly 50% of children over 5, are not diagnosed and not receiving treatment. And critically, those who are on treatment, about 30% are not virally suppressed. It's a combination of reasons, but it comes down to a very fundamental issue. Is when we look clinic by clinic, young people do not have the same and equal access, the non-stigmatizing, non-discriminating access that many adults have. What is particularly distressing to me is today, 95% of the moms of those children are in our clinics. Which means we haven't talked honestly to the moms that children may have become positive during breastfeeding when they received only short course AZT, which many of the moms just 7 years ago did. All of these are failures of our programming. We recognize them. We agonize over them. Because we see the numbers as you see the numbers. We see the numbers of the late return of early infant diagnosis. We see the numbers of the 5-year-olds who have fought to survive and still not found by us. We see the numbers, as you described, of young women who have anywhere from 2 to 11 times the new infection rate of their male counterparts. PEPFAR and Global Fund were established out of seeing and acting. So I think once you know the data, you must act. We have been pushing this agenda and failing, particularly our children. We were seeing that in young women also. We were seeing the rising rates in young women, the constant annotation from microbicide studies that occurred all through Southern Africa, documenting annual incidence of 8, 9, and 11%, the ECHO trial with incidence of 5%, and documenting without programming that was structural for young women. Now, those of you who know my background know that I came out of bench science. It was difficult to do an entirely structural intervention for young women. Why did we do it? Because there were programs scattered around sub-Saharan Africa that suggested structural interventions were working. Now, they were small programs, programs in education, programs in cash transfer, programs that sought justice for rape, programs that looked at the whole adolescent and young woman and said, what are their interactions with family, with community, with each other? And how do we provide a different future? Dreams was born out of that desire, determined, resilient, empowered, AIDS-free, mentored, and safe young women. It was born out of a desire that I raised 2 daughters. And when they finally told me in their 20s what they were doing in their teens, I realized that even though they had the information, they were not making the changes that they needed to make in order to make choices or having the information or the biomedical or structural interventions that they would have needed if they had been in a different environment. Dreams was born out of the belief that if we talk to young women and we hear them and design from the ground up, we'll have a program that has impact. Yes, we funded it, but the impact of Dreams today is far greater than what we could have envisioned, because the impact of Dreams today is reflected in our Dreams ambassadors, who have gone beyond their districts and communities and spread the message in a peer-to-peer way that has had an impact that we could have never imagined. This World AIDS Day, for the first time, now it took us a 1.5 years to get Dreams off the ground, because it was planned from the ground up. So 3.5 years in of full implementation, every single district, all 88 of them, now show a decline in HIV incidence. And about half of them show declines of more than 40%. Again, the power of belief in the young women translated into action. That's what we believe in today. We believe that we have enough evidence that both the Global Fund and PEPFAR need to dramatically expand these programs, district by district, community by community, putting the adolescent and young woman at the center. We will fully admit there are gaps in the program, particularly when it comes to 20 to 24-year-olds and the opportunities for economic empowerment. But then we had to look at ourselves and say, are we employing the Dreams ambassadors? Are we employing the capacitated young women as community health workers, as peer outreach workers? Are we actually funding them to do additional work? And so we're looking at this very carefully to really speak with one voice and speak with a single action. Yes, everything that was said about children and the gap in pediatrics is true. Everything that is said about the incidence in young women is true. And for the young men, we've spent a lot on you. We've spent $5 billion preventing infections in young men through voluntary medical male circumcision, condoms, and education. We are just now reaching $900 million as our investment in young women. This kind of inequity in investment must be addressed. We intend to do that. You're right, a flat budget makes it more difficult. I'm dependent on our Congress to allocate dollars to this program, but we will find resources internally and balance portfolios so that we can reach more young women with this powerful program, which I hope you will hear about more today. I am proud every day when I get to interact with Dreams programming and Dreams Young Women. And I will tell you that there are some dark days when we're having budget fights, when everything seems quite dismal. And then I only have to reflect on the young women I met and the voice that they have, their willingness to stand up to ministers of health and permanent secretaries, and be very clear about their needs and their requirements in order to live a healthy and thriving life in their communities and countries, because they want to be the leaders of the future, and it's our job to ensure that they're healthy. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank Ambassador Brett for such a wonderful presentation, and also I would like to thank you for standing up for us as adolescent girls and young women in Africa through the Dreams program. Standing before you is a girl by the name of Musa Denjira, who comes from Zimbabwe, specifically Bulawayo. I am working as a community adolescent treatment supporter, and I am also a Dreams ambassador. I am also a beneficiary of the Dreams program. As a Dreams ambassador, my major role is to make sure that adolescent girls and young women are able to treatment and refer them for different services, among others. I will give this opportunity to my co-moderator, Cedric, to introduce himself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Musa. Good afternoon once again. My name is Cedric Ninaze, and I'm the program manager of the Global Network for Young People Living with HIV. I think it has been mentioned already that we are expecting to have wonderful presentations from youth leaders on their wonderful work and success in terms of leading the HIV response. Musa, do you know who is our presenters?
Yes, I know. Our first speakers are the Dreams ambassadors who are empowered, just like me, standing before you. So I'll give this opportunity to our three Dreams ambassadors, which are the Timu Komba, Dreams ambassador from Zimbabwe, Silolele Mwanza, Dreams ambassador from Zambia, Agnelia Vasco, Dreams ambassador from Mozambique. So I'm going to give us a big program. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, the Dreams program is implemented in 15 countries. To mention a few: Zimbabwe, Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, Mozambique, and Kenya. So over 900 million has been put into this initiative, into this program. Partners include PEPFAR, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Delayed Sciences, Girl Effect, Johnson & Johnson, and Viva Healthcare. So, these partners, they are the ones who are sponsoring for the Dreams project. The Dreams program offers comprehensive HIV prevention amongst adolescent girls and young women from the age of 24 who are highly vulnerable to HIV accusations. Next slide, please. So the Dreams core packages are given to empower girls and young women who are at risk of HIV. So the objectives we do, we strengthen families, mobilize communities for change, reduce risk of sexual partners, and out there are the activities we do so that the girls and young women are reduced from the risk of HIV. Next slide, please. So I am a 23-year-old mother of one, and my parents passed away when I was still 7. I started staying with my grandmother, who was able to provide our needs. So when I was 14, I dropped out of school. I got pregnant. I started selling sex at the age of 14, and I didn't know that I was selling sex. So I got pregnant because I didn't know any family planning methods, or I didn't have any information on condom use. When I get pregnant, I was chased away from home by my grandmother. I started moving around with some friends helping me with food, others giving me where to sleep. So from there, I started selling sex with the help of my friends. Some of them used to collect the money for me because I didn't know anything about sex, though I was in it. Sometimes when I was staying with my friends, I could go out and have sex for a place to sleep because of, like, maybe my friends have a visitor, so I should go somewhere and look for a place to sleep. When I gave birth, my grandmother took my child and she started staying with him, and she saw that I wasn't taking good care of the child. From there, I had enough space because I was now moving around by myself, and I started moving around, having sex with different men in exchange of money, and sometimes I could even have sex for food. I started going out to clubs, abusing drugs, and smoking marijuana. And from there, I met a certain lady from a program, a dreams program, a dreams partner program, which is called Session. It offers clinical services to young women selling sex and other sex workers. So I met a lady from that program, and she told me more about their program. I was interested in this program, so I went the following day. I visited the clinic. They had a clinic. I visited the clinic. When I get there, I was cancelled. I was tested, and I was HIV negative, but I was diagnosed with an STI. I was treated for that STI for free, and they gave me injection and pills for free. In 2017, I was referred to PSI for PrEP, and I was initiated on PrEP, and I was also referred to FACT Zimbabwe. FACT Zimbabwe is offering some services. It's also a dreams party. So it's offering services to adolescent girls and young women. I was enrolled at Mutare Polytechnical College for a course. I chose a 1-year course, and I did auto electrics. Now I'm graduated with a certificate in auto electrics. So I was selected to be one of the Dreams Ambassador for my district, and I managed to educate and refer 218 adolescent girls for services like clinical services and GBV services. Now I can pay school fees for my son. I can buy even buy clothes and some of the things I want, because I'm now working at a local garage. I'm getting about 300 bond a week, though my salary is increasing like so now I'm empowered. I can say no to sex at any time, and I can have sex at my own time. I now know how to use condoms and everything. So I would like to thank and PEPFAR for all the support they're giving us, adolescent girls and young women.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Mwanza Tilolele, and I'm a Dreams Ambassador from Zambia. So from the time the Dreams program started in 2016, 456,000 girls have graduated from the stepping stones, and these are awarded certificate afterwards. So from this number, 41,200 young women have had access to family planning services at the dream centers. So in the 8 districts where dreams is provided, we have 40 dream centers, and these are placed right within the communities where the adolescent girls live. So being a pharmacist by profession, I noticed that the young women are not very free to access these services at the hospitals because they usually fear judgment, and sometimes hospitals can be very busy, so there are a lot of people around them. So being an ambassador, I also noticed that they are more safe and they are more free to access these services within the centers. So I'm able to refer them to the dream centers where they access these services. And this is done in collaboration with Ministry of Health, who provide their nurses twice a week that come to the dream centers to provide these services. So the young women are also reached with economic strengthening, and these include vocational skills trainings. Like you can see in the picture, that's Zenika Banda, who's studying water engineering. So the girls also have access to business startup kits according to what interests them. So we have some that are in the tailoring business, but also that are in the hairdressing business. Then we also have linkage to employment. So we have some of our adolescent girls after graduating who are working in the hospitality industry as well as the mining sector. So we also have 29,000 girls who have been supported with tuition and material through school-based prevention intervention. And this is done for those that are on the verge of dropping out or those that have already dropped out of school. And this is for secondary education. So I actually agree with Ambassador Birds, who says there is need for government to provide free secondary education. So we also have anti-GBV champions, these are both male and female, who conduct GBV awareness and facilitate active referrals for the girls to post-GBV care. And then the adolescent girls are also trained in digital literacy, as we all know that we're now in the tech era. So we're also happy to say that our adolescent girls have access to mental health support through interpersonal group therapy. And this is done in collaboration with an NGO called Strong Minds. And so of the few girls that were able to access these services, 25% of them are now depression-free. So we also work with stakeholders in the community. These are faith-based organizations, civic leaders, as well as traditional leaders. So my fellow ambassadors and I, we sensitize communities about the project and how our fellow adolescent girls and young women can benefit from this program. We also facilitate Dreams community radio listening groups where we talk about different topics, mainly focusing on sexual reproductive health. And the picture above is one I did with PSID. That was a campaign on the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So the next slide is basically about all the Dreams countries, and this is in line with stakeholder coordination and engagement. So for the Dreams stakeholders, we conduct meetings, and these are monthly at national and district level. So this helps to strengthen active referrals as well as linkages to services for the adolescent girls. So this makes sure that the girls are accessing a lot of the packages that Dreams has to offer. So we also have quarterly meetings, and I'm very happy to say that we ambassadors are usually involved, especially I've witnessed in Zambia, where we're able to give feedback from the girls about what they're learning from the program and how best to help them. So most Dream countries, for example, Zambia and Zimbabwe, is now using the DHIS2 database, which generates unique identifiers for the adolescent girls and young women enrolled in the program. And this also helps us to know how many services each girl is accessing from the packages offered.
Boa tarde, eu sou a Eternia Vasco, sou embaixadora Dreams, sou ativista social e educadora de base do Moçambique.
Her name is Agnalia Vasco. She's a Dreams ambassador, she's an activist, and she's a peer educator from Mozambique.
Bem, estou aqui também para partilhar algumas das nossas práticas importantes do Moçambique, que são boas práticas.
She's here to share some of the good practice of Dreams in Mozambique.
É importante realçar que para Moçambique nós temos grande suporte do governo.
She said in Mozambique we have great support from the Mozambique government.
A título de exemplo, podemos ver o alinhamento do pacote de serviços Dreams ao Plano Nacional de Saúde existente em Moçambique.
So the Dreams package aligns with the National Health for Youth of Mozambique.
Que é importante para os adolescentes e jovens.
Which is really important for youth and young people and youngsters.
E é importante partilhar também que o governo moçambicano, nós sentimos que ele reconhece que 50% da população existente representa a camada juvenil.
She's saying that the government in Mozambique realizes that 50% of the population is less than 24 years old, and she feels that they give support to young people.
E essa camada juvenil, ela precisa de gozar do pleno direito de saúde.
And this age group needs and they have the right to health.
E também temos a título de exemplo o reforçamento da prática, ou melhor, da lei de prevenção e proteção e que pune os casamentos prematuros.
There's also the reinforcement of a law to prevent child marriage in Mozambique.
Pois é. Então, temos a plataforma integradora também, que é a plataforma Learning.
We also have a tool that we call the Learning Tool.
Aí onde nós introduzimos o pacote de serviços tanto comunitários como os clínicos.
So where we introduce the services that are provided to you, clinical and community services.
É uma plataforma online.
It's an online platform.
Que permite ter o acesso de dados de cada beneficiário, porque é uma plataforma que gera um número único identificador.
And so each youth is given a unique number to the platform, and it helps manage the services they're getting.
É um número que permite ao adolescente para poder ter acesso a vários serviços, tanto os comunitários como os clínicos.
So depending on their needs, this unique identifier can help us to refer the youth to different services.
E esses serviços são oferecidos a nível da comunidade. Temos os campos de saúde escolar a nível da escola e os serviços amigos de adolescentes e jovens nas unidades sanitárias.
So there are services in the health school corner and there are services in the health centers.
Portanto, a ligação é feita a nível do parceiro comunitário, clínico, das escolas, nos campos de saúde escolar e nos serviços amigos de adolescentes e jovens.
There's a linkage between all the services, community, clinical services, to make sure that you get the services you need.
E, portanto, também é importante dizer que temos um sistema harmonizado de vulnerabilidade, de identificação ou rastreio de vulnerabilidade e de pacotes de intervenções do DRIMS.
So all the partners use the same vulnerability assessment tool to make sure we find the most vulnerable girls.
Mas também é importante realçar que um dos principais pilares ou um dos principais programas que o DRIMS já implementou é o programa das embaixadoras DRIMS.
So she feels that one of the most important activity is the Dreams Ambassador.
Então, nós como embaixadoras, nós somos as vozes das raparigas.
So she is the voice of the young people.
Nós lutamos para que as raparigas possam ver os seus direitos reconhecidos.
So they're fighting for the young people's right to be recognized, young women's right.
Nós lutamos para que as raparigas possam ter sonhos.
They're fighting for young women to have dreams.
E não só. Aquelas que achavam que os seus sonhos estavam perdidos, nós somos a ponte de ligação para que possamos mostrar a elas que os sonhos delas não estão perdidos e podem ser achados.
So she's saying that she's helping also young people who thought that they're lost their dreams to find them back, linking them to the services they need to get home again.
Nós inspiramos as outras raparigas para que possam tomar decisões corretas da sua vida.
So they want to inspire other youth to make the right decisions.
Nós somos as advogadas das raparigas.
They're the advocates for the young women.
E as embaixadoras de DRIMS, elas são raparigas. Raparigas que são voluntárias que decidiram por si lutar pelas suas pares, ou seja, pelos pares que são as raparigas.
So they're young women who decide to be volunteer to fight for the rights of other young.
E é importante partilhar também que para Moçambique, através da plataforma integradora LERE, ela permite que exista uma coordenação ou sinergia entre os parceiros implementadores do DRIMS.
For dreams to work, we need to work together, the community and the clinical partner. And so she thinks dreams makes this possible.
Next slide. E nós também ajudamos a mobilização de raparigas a partir dos serviços comunitários, onde elas têm educação sobre as boas práticas, os comportamentos que são adequados para cada rapariga.
So they help mobilize the youth in the community, teaching them through sessions.
e preparamos essas raparigas através dos espaços seguros existentes na comunidade de escola. Referimos elas para os serviços clínicos a nível das escolas, nos campos de saúde escolar e serviços amigos de adolescentes e jovens.
They use safe space where they can talk to young women and talk to them about the right choices and services that exist that can help them.
Apoiamos também na assistência para os parceiros Dreams e PEPFAR também, na promoção da nossa marca que é o Dreams.
So she says that they also are promoting the Dreams brand.
Advogadas dos adolescentes e jovens, coordenando e levamos seus problemas, ou seja, nós identificamos os problemas das raparigas e as possíveis soluções que podem advir para que possam cobrir as suas necessidades.
So they're finding the problems, they're talking about the problems they're finding in the communities of the young people.
A partir da participação que nós temos com o envolvimento dos parceiros implementadores nas reuniões distritais, provinciais e nacionais e, claro, a representação internacional também.
So she's saying that Dreams Ambassador are included in discussion at the district level, provincial level, national level, and at the international level. So their voice is heard.
Portanto, nós somos a ponte de ligação das raparigas.
They are the link and the voice for the young women.
Fornecemos também aos parceiros implementadores como é que está o progresso do programa e qual é a aceitação que ele tem a nível das comunidades, de modo a influenciar na tomada correta de decisões que possam beneficiar os adolescentes e jovens.
So they also give feedback to the implementing partner about the services, what's working, what's accepted, what we should do.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think you can agree with me from our presentation that Dreams has made a lot of progress because we the youth have been actively involved in the program. So we simply wanted to echo on the importance of the youth being involved in designing tools and implementing these interventions that involve us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Obrigado. I think that's the power of youth, and we recognize that this is the kind of mirror we should look at in every morning whenever we think about youth engagement. Please give a round of applause to the Dream Ambassador. As we continue with our presenters, I'm very happy to introduce you Nyasha Fanisa Sitole from Athena Network, who is going to tell us about, again, the girls' power and the youth engagement in the community response.
Would you allow me to sit down, Cedric? Because I'm so short and I feel so intimidated. As I move over to my seat. So thank you very much everybody for joining us for this session. My name is Nyasha Fanisa Stole, working with Athena Network as the regional lead for advocacy, mentorship, advocacy and training. So in 2016 as Athena Network, we came together to mobilize adolescent girls and young women so that we can have a voice towards the HIV prevention strategy that was being drafted by UNAIDS. And as we were doing this mobilization, there were some key outcomes that came from these conversations. And the campaign was called What Women Want, because we realized that if we're going to end the HIV and AIDS epidemic, we need to focus on what do adolescent girls and young women want. Because it is really said that years and years into the HIV and AIDS response, HIV and AIDS still has the face of adolescent girls and young women. And we were really interrogating to say, what is it that is not happening correctly? What is the game changer? What do we need to do differently? And I will quote my president, Emerson Damuzomnangwaga. He says, doing business unusual. So what is it that we need to do differently for us to change the face of HIV? So what we discovered is, and what we said we wanted as adolescent girls and young women, is on addressing structural interventions that deal with dismantling barriers that prevent adolescent girls and young women in accessing life-saving sexual and reproductive health and SRI/HR services in HIV, like age of consent to accessing SRH and HIV. It is really sad that still up to now, you find that there is an age of consent to accessing HIV testing at 16 years. Yet we are saying young people should have the agency and the power to know about their status, even as early as 12 years. And we're still seeing a lot of archaic laws, if I can say so, around criminalization, on willful transmission of HIV, criminalization of sex work, and we still see again harmful structural, traditional, and gender norms, which include commodification of adolescent girls and young women like child marriage. And all this to us needs to be addressed if we're going to change the face of HIV. As young women, what we also would want to see is a comprehensive, inclusive, and non-judgmental HIV and sexual and reproductive health and rights services and information that has the ability to embrace, respect, and respond to the priorities that we need. We also need to see a strengthened investment and a facilitated, meaningful leadership. It's really sad that even up to now, the agenda on the table is about adolescent girls and young women. But unfortunately, the funding is not for adolescent girls and young women. And thank you very much to Ambassador Brex. Even yesterday when we were at the session at Lemigo Hotel, I really liked the way you're holding yourself accountable before we even come through. To give us the statistics to say billions have been invested on VMMC, but what has been invested on a direct response for adolescent girls and young women is less than $1 billion. So who are we giving the responsibility to deal with HIV? The men. And again, these are things we're saying as adolescent girls and young women, where is our agency and where is our power if we continue to see this inequitable access to resources? Also, as adolescent girls and young women, we still want to remain in school. But it's not enough to be only in school. We also need to see the delivery and access to comprehensive sexuality education because it supports us as we're growing. It supports us in making decisions that are powerful to our lives. And we need this comprehensive sexuality education in and out of school. I've always said that it's really sad how our governments, most of the time, they get into fights of conversations of why is it called comprehensive sexuality education instead of focusing on the content and how important the content is to the lives of adolescent girls and young women. What we also want to see is an advancement in safety, security, freedom from violence. I'm so glad that we're having the ICASA conference in the days of 16 days of activism against violence on women and girls. So what does that mean on the intersectionality between GBV as well as HIV? We cannot continue to turn a blind eye and not address the forms of all the forms of violence, particularly sexual harassment as well. Then when it comes to biomedical interventions, again what we need to see is interventions that promote our agents, our choice and control on our bodies as we deal around vulnerabilities of HIV. We have all been shocked by the ECHO trial results. They did shock us a lot. Of course, there was no linkage between HIV and the DMP or those contraceptives. But what was shocking is that of all, some of the women who were participating in the ECHO trial, the HIV incidence was high. To me, that was just a red flag, which needs us to sit down and think, what went wrong during the ECHO trial? Because these are women and girls who had access to a comprehensive range of services during the trial, but again, the HIV incidence was very high. So for me, the question will be, do the existing HIV prevention commodities really promote or meet the needs of adolescent girls and young women? Where is the PrEP? Where is the ring? And where are the microbicides? We are tired of hearing about the researches. We are even tired of even participating in the researches, yet we are not even getting close to accessing those commodities. Woo! So we need to see a change. So for as adolescent girls and young women, the game changer is leave no one behind. We are very diverse, but we're still being left behind. We need interventions that continue to track what we need, that continue to evolve us, and that continue to make sure the flow of resources is coming to us. So before we conclude our time, because we are 10 minutes, I'm going to invite Irene apparently, because Irene, as you can see over that side, we've got the What Girls Want banner. So after the What Women campaign, we also went further to focus on adolescent girls and young women campaign. So Irene, who is also the chair of the session, is going to share with us the experiences working in Kenya and promoting the What Girls Want campaign. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nyasha. My name is Irene Ogeta, a What Girls Want champion working with Athena Network, and I happen to be the chair of the day. What Girls Want project was a piloting project which happened in Nairobi and Homa Bay counties in Kenya. The What Girls Want project was basically a piloting project which was looking and digging deep in the needs of the adolescent girls and young women in the most rural bits of Homa Bay County and the informal settlements of Nairobi. We were working with 4 champions who were working directly with 3 peer mobilizers each. The champions' roles were basically to be able to ensure that there was a social media engagement with the information on sexual and reproductive health and rights, advocacy on women's rights, and be able to mentor the peer mobilizers who were able to reach out to adolescent girls and young women in the village and in informal settlements to act as mentees, and also engage the partners doing advocacy and interventions around sexual and reproductive health and rights, because we believe that we need to refer people. Something that is basically beyond our capacity at that moment. At the level of advocacy, we needed partners to be able to refer to them for more detailed and more productive engagement, especially the victims of gender-based violence. What Girls Want project basically was digging deep in the needs of the adolescent girls aged between 13 and 17. This happens to be the most left out group. We realized that these girls are able to, they know their needs. What they lack is the platform to be able to air some of these needs. And they had so much interest to be able to learn and get to know more knowledge, to get more information on mentorship, HIV prevention and information, especially PrEP. There was so much concern on how PrEP is used. And the question of why they should use PrEP alongside condom kept coming up. There was so much interest for them to also get to learn on how to end stigma around HIV and also sexual and gender-based violence. They really needed to know how to balance their talents and academics. They wanted information on cervical cancer, detection and treatment. They wanted information on safe sex. They also needed information on dignity and how to be able to embrace leadership roles at their young ages. There was so much need for them to be able to, they advocated that they needed integration of CSEs in the schools. Because in most of the times, most governments do not support comprehensive sexual education in schools. And this is becoming a burden because it's kind of dragging the fight against HIV new infection rates behind. We are here advocating for 0 new infection rates, but the governments are not helping us to be able to reach this target, which is quite a shame. Based on our analysis, we realized that these girls, after we had our mentorship programs, they were able to realize that they had the ability to make informed decisions concerning their rights and bodies and their health. We need to come down. There was need for age consent to be basically removed, the policy that surrounds age consent, because it really restrains them from receiving the extreme or rather exclusive medical attention. Because if you want me, a 10-year-old girl, 17-year-old girl who is having sex to work in a health facility and be able to negotiate my health, my sexual health or choices with someone who is 40 years old, that cannot work. they needed youthful spaces, youthful friendly spaces characterized by youthful medical practitioners whom they can be able to openly discuss the medical conditions without having any fear of being discriminated or judged. They became very open about their lives, and they had a safe space in us and shared some of the challenges, and they became very vibrant and gained the confidence and self-esteem to be able to advocate for issues concerning them. They also gained so much confidence to be able to directly discuss and openly disclose their HIV status, which initially was very tough for them, considering the discrimination and stigmatization rate is very high. There was also something that kept coming up, the issue of not engaging the community stakeholders. Because we realized how much do you involve the community stakeholders. When I say this, I mean, because we're working with girls aged 13 to 17, we had to seek parental consent. And one of the challenges that we got was some of the parents still do not understand the needs of having exclusive sexual information to the girls. They have the mentality of, you are spoiling our girls, you are advocating for sex. That's what we're doing. We're trying to make these parents and stakeholders and the key stakeholders and community gatekeepers to be able to understand these are girls, they have their choices. Kindly allow them to be able to make informed choices. Thank you.
From the Agenda Network for a handful presentation. Saving the best for the last, I would like to call upon Global Network of Young People Living with HIV, White Class Network, Janet T. Villa. Let's give her a round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am short, yes, but I'm hoping that everyone can see my face. We're going to discuss about, I'm going to show you things that we have done, and I'm going to tell you about young people living with HIV-led initiatives in the community response. So to do that, I'm going to first introduce you to what the Global Network of Young People Living with HIV is. So we're going to have a short video. Please be attentive, and we'll then discuss after the video. Okay, we're probably having technology issues, but we're still waiting. So people coming from outside Africa, welcome to Africa. Great, so it's coming up.
Provide ethical empowerment for young people living with HIV to create support.
Sorry, can we start it from the beginning? Thank you.
White Plus is evolving, and we're excited to share with you our plans. This video is an overview of our strategy to let you know our intentions for the next 3 years. Who is White Plus? White Plus is also known as a global network of young people living with HIV. It is striving to provide ethical empowerment for young people living with HIV to create, support, and nurture our leadership opportunities.
Young people are key to ending the epidemic, reduction of HIV transmission rates, and increasing access to treatment and adherence. We need to lead decision-making and leadership roles that impact our lives across different parts of the interventions, from policy to research to implementation and support. Our vision is clear. Our intentions have increased, but we understand the importance of being first to achieve our goals.
Our mission: to provide ethical empowerment, ensuring excellence in leadership, education, and engagement in spaces that impact our lives. Our vision: to achieve the best quality of life for all young people living with HIV. Our focus is to improve the quality of life of young people living with HIV. How will we achieve this?
he will continue to represent 9 global regions: Asia Pacific, Caribbean, Eastern Europe and Central Asia, East and Southern Africa, Latin America, Middle East and North Africa, North America, West and Central Africa, and West and Central Europe.
If you are a young person from one of these regions, you can get connected and network with fellow representatives. We are keen to work with our communities and raise our voice globally. We are creating Y+ committees. We have 5 themed areas of work: policy, science, capacity building, training plan support.
Each committee will be co-chaired by one board member and another YPL with HIV who will oversee all Y+ projects under these areas. We have a passionate and dynamic secretariat that has a mission to implement our strategic plan. We will have a 3-year work plan. Each piece of work will link into our 5-unit program.
Piece of work has been identified as we believe that it will help us to achieve our vision. All of our projects and activities are in line with our strategic plan. We support young people living with HIV in country, constituency, area, community outreach, and country advocacy.
And we will build capacity of young people to advocate for their needs. You can have access to our resources as well. For full details, please read our written report. The report will be available on our website and translated into English, French, Swahili, Russian, Portuguese, and Spanish.
Visit www.yplusnetwork.org for information.
Great, thank you very much. So with that, we're excited that our strategy is out and we would like to speak to the issue that until the 1st of December, World AIDS Day, had the theme Communities Make a Difference. And we would like to take a quote from the Executive Director of UNAIDS, who mentioned that communities are the best hope for ending AIDS because communities have fought against HIV rights from the beginning. So with that in mind, speaking about communities that make a difference, with our strategy and our promise that within the 3 years and going forward, we would like to show you the different mechanisms and initiatives that we have done. So firstly, in the next slide, we speak about the Ready movement, which is a movement which is youth-led and it's youth-led, and it's also done by youth-serving organizations. Y+ being the engine of the movement and young people at the heart of Ready. How do we do this as a movement? We have 5 initiatives. So the next slide will show you Ready Plus, which is an initiative that is done to scale up. Can we show the next slide, please? Thank you. So it's a model that is scaling up the CATS in 4 countries: Mozambique, Eswatini, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. CATS model, as Musa said, she's one of the CATS. CATS, not the animal itself, but standing for Community Adolescent Treatment Supporters, who work within the homes and the clinics in supporting their peers in adhering to their medication and addressing their mental health as well within homes and the clinics. So following that is Ready Teams, which provides comprehensive sexual and reproductive health services, and it builds the capacity of youth leaders who run safe spaces for adolescents in Burundi, Ethiopia, and Uganda. Ready to Lead is a program in the next slide that strengthens the leadership and advocacy skills of 100 young female peer supporters in Zimbabwe, focusing on sexual and reproductive health rights, HIV, and policy budgets. The next initiative is iReady, which supports and creates information and communication technology tools that can be used by adolescents, young people in Burundi and Mozambique to promote access to information on SRHR, peer support, and adolescent to HIV treatment. The last one that we have is Ready Fellowship, where White Plus Board members have a 6-month intensive training program with the support of GNP Plus and Frontline AIDS in being able to build their capacity on advocacy and leadership skills. So in the next slide, we're going to speak about the achievements that we've done within the movement. We've been actively involved in advocacy for policy change and implementation of programs that aim to meet our needs. How have we done that? Through influencing the age of consent in Tanzania and Zimbabwe. We've been able to also influence the DTT rollout, the new drug, in Eswatini and Zimbabwe. We've also been able to have meaningful participation of adolescent young people living with HIV within technical working groups and the CCM. We also want to believe that we're the best to reach out to our peers through community outreach, through models that I have mentioned before within the next slide. We also have the innovative strategies to tackle a number of issues, unlimited addressing issues to do with stigma and discrimination through the White Plus Beauty Pageant, which is being led by Uganda Network of Young People Living with HIV. We have an organization or a young people's network in Burundi that works with adolescents on SRHI information and counseling services, and we're proud to say that since its inception in 2014, they've been able to reach out to at least 55,000 young people between the ages of 10 to 24 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. I'd like to call on stage our special guest so that we can start our panel. I know the day has been long, but we try to make it very short. Ambassador Biggs, please welcome on stage. And Dr. Paula, please welcome on stage as well. So as you can see, our presenters and participants will present a very key constituency, and we sat down and thought about what kind of questions should we ask you. And my co-moderator Musa is going to ask you the first question, and we hope to get the best answer from you.
For my special guest, Ambassador D. Biggs, I would like to ask you just one question. How can you, in your very prominent leadership capacities, ensure better engagement and inclusion of girls, women, and youth overall in decision-making and strategy development for the HIV/AIDS response?
Well, that's a great question, and I think because I was the first woman in this position, I really felt like it was my opportunity to bring young women to the forefront. Because I could discuss things and ask for things for our ministries of health and heads of state, like universal access to secondary education, like dealing with justice for rape in communities, and give voice to the issues that my predecessors may not have been able to give voice to in the same way. So that is what I've been really dedicated to really do that. Our Dreams ambassadors and our Dreams team, I don't have to do anything. They are so phenomenal. Like all the women you saw here today, they're amazing. So I just have to provide opportunities so their voices can be heard.
daring the very same question. How can you, in your very prominent leadership capacities, ensure better engagement and inclusion of girls, women, and youth overall in decision-making and strategy development for the HIV/AIDS response?
So I am new to this role as the coordinator of the HIV, the Global HIV Prevention Coalition. And the best way that I have realized to use my leadership role is to listen to the young people. Thank you all so much for your contributions and your sharing your stories and your dreams this afternoon. Earlier this month, we did meet with a group of young people, among them Nyasha, at another summit in Nairobi, and we listened very, very attentively to what they had to say. They were very clear. We want to be part of the solution. We do not want to be passengers on this journey to ending AIDS among young people. And we heard what you said. And one of the things that we have done is to consult with the young women, to consult them on the plans and the advocacy plan for adolescent girls and young women that UNAIDS will be taking forward.
Thank you so much. My turn to balance. There's a question that was suggested by one of our speakers. How is actually an advice that we are looking for from you. How can we, as youth leaders, youth network, or adolescent girl and young women leaders, how can we organize or position ourselves to better inform your programs and policy development?
So I'll be really brief. We have an opportunity annually with our COP meetings, and if you could look at our COP guidance, which is posted in pepfar.gov, and see if we're providing the right guidance to our countries about how to engage youth in all planning aspects. And we've asked for and required at this COP planning in Johannesburg region, your countries, to ensure that youth are present during the planning, to ensure that their voices are heard by governments and communities at the very time that the next year's worth of plans are actually brought forward by governments. That's when the funding decisions occur, and that's where you can have the biggest impact to tell us if we get it right. And believe me, everybody's voice is very loud at the table, so your voice will be well heard.
The same question goes to Dr. Paul.
Thank you. Tough questions, huh? So next week, at UNAIDS, we support the meaningful engagement of youth and young people in the HIV response. So next week we have a partnership coordination board, and we will discuss in depth how to reduce the impact of HIV among children and adolescents. And youth leaders from all over the world will be present and will be contributing to this discussion. So this is just one of the ways in which we invite, support and encourage the engagement of youth in our policy and the work we do.
And then what is the way that we can hold you accountable? So we now know how we can inform you, and then how can we hold you accountable?
Well, you need to write me if you're not included in the COP planning in the countries, because they have their strategy meeting in January. If they don't invite you to the table, just send me a note. It's easy, BIRXDL@state.gov. I know who to talk to in country to really raise that awareness, because it's critical to me personally. Your ideas, just what we heard today, are groundbreaking, and you have innovations that we need to bring to scale and have to fund. And we have to be the voice at the table in some cases where the voices aren't heard loud enough. And so you need to tell us if you're not engaged, so that we can absolutely hold our teams and ourselves accountable.
Janet, did you know that address email? Did you? I think you can note it now, and then maybe you announce it later on. Ola?
Yes, likewise. I invite you to hold us accountable, and we've already started one of these activities in the Global HIV Prevention Coalition. We invited the Athena Network to give us over a 2-day meeting in Nairobi to give us the building blocks of an action plan on adolescent girls and young men, and we will use this advocacy plan and give it wings and turn it into action.
Thank you very much for the response. Kindly take note, the next question is directed to Athena, Dreams Ambassadors and the ICASA Network. Our question is, what are some of the greatest challenges you face leading HIV prevention and care and treatment programs as young people? Also, kindly take note for the Dreams Ambassadors, only one of you guys is allowed to answer the question for the sake of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Musad. So the challenges that we're facing, basically, I think I'll mention 3. Hopefully I will finish them for everybody else. So the first one is the issues to do with volunteers that are working within the countries that we're working in. So we're speaking to issues to do with the CATS and the Dreams Ambassadors, who are just volunteers, and they would need to travel from place to place so that they can be able to also work within their constituencies and the districts that they're working in. So because of that, I don't think that the $15 they're getting every month would really sustain them. So I think that the first thing that we need to do is just remunerate them well, so that they can be able to carry out their duties well. Why I'm saying that is because also some people from the rural areas, when they then start taking up this volunteer position, they're looked upon as a person that's going to be able to take care of them. Zimbabwe, for example, we're probably going to be rushing into drought very soon. And the cats that are working in the rural areas right now are supporting their families using the same stipend they're getting every month for whatever else they're doing, and they're still from the same stipend expected to travel and support their parents. And then the second thing that I want to mention is issues to do with the data that is missing for adolescent young people living with HIV, especially addressing the diversity that we have. So if we would like to then collect that data and have it speak to our diversities, then it will probably also then guide us in our programming. The last thing that I want to speak is on UHC, universal health coverage. Currently, right now, it's not speaking to discussions around sexual and reproductive health and rights of adolescent young people living with HIV and just adolescents in general. So it would be nice if funders would increase the money that we have so that we can be able to then have that and speak to the discussions around sexual and reproductive health.
All right, thank you very much. And our friend Janet has said everything else, so now I'm trying to think what should I say. But I guess what I would like to really emphasize on is what I said earlier on, to say that the HIV prevention roadmap right now is extent. It's really still very, very much heavily controlled on tools and strategies that promote male involvement more than what promotes agents for adolescent girls and young women. And that still remains very much problematic. For example, when we reach out to our communities of young women and we are promoting HIV prevention, the question they ask is, which condom? Because for me, as I look at the involvement of the male condom, it has evolved from just being a basic condom to being rigged. There are condoms, male condoms that are cool and warm, there are male condoms that are flavored and all those things. But what do we have with the female condom? It's still the same thing. And at some point, I think I came across this one, which had a sponge inside. That was really hideous. And you can't expect for us to continue promoting those kind of HIV prevention commodities for adolescent girls and young women. So we really need to see a shift in what is being provided when we talk about HIV prevention. Then the other thing that, again, Janet has talked about, funding for community work. This is really, really a thorn issue, and we will not stop talking about it. I was looking at the earlier activism that happened when the Ambassador Brooks was speaking. So I was like, I think for us to be heard as young people, we need to also just stop one of the sessions and demand funding for community work that is being done by young people. Because we cannot continue being volunteers. Youth work is work, and that needs to be acknowledged. And then the last thing is an investment in leadership. It's okay for us to have a seat on the table, but then the gap comes on, are you really investing in making sure that when I sit on the table, I have the right language, I have the right information, and I have the right access to anyone who can mentor me to be in the space. So it's not enough for to promote the leadership of young women and say, oh, we had a panel, and I'm so glad this panel is really amazing. It's all female, right? But then if people from networks were coming Cedric will recognize you. So I really want to acknowledge, because I think Tada really went out of your way to support the Dreams Ambassadors, and there are our colleagues as well from Athena Network who were like, oh, you're going to be at this panel. Which support do you need? So this is also the kind of investment on young women's leadership and youth leadership that we need to see. Because gone are the days when we used to say, if you don't invite us on the table, we just come through and take your seat. It's good, we'll come through and take your seat, but when the questions start coming, we go blank. So we need you also to invest on our mentorship so that we really become effective and very powerful leaders. So for me, I think those are some of the challenges that need to be addressed.
Bem, boa tarde. Eu, como estou em representação dos outros adolescentes e jovens, eu trago uma preocupação que não só eu acho que não é dos adolescentes e jovens do meu país, mas também que seja uma preocupação dos adolescentes e jovens de outras partes do mundo.
She wants to bring out some of the concerns of youth of Mozambique, but she thinks it's concerns of youth of other countries also.
Eu falo da inclusão dos adolescentes e jovens com deficiência.
She's talking about youth who have handicaps.
Eu acho que esse grupo-alvo também tem dificuldades em receber a informação que é de prevenção do HIV, porque sentimos que os ativistas não têm o pacote de capacitação com relação ao uso de línguas de sinais e nem mesmo o pessoal de saúde.
So she's saying, for example, that the activists don't know how to talk with people, to sign language with people who are deaf, or even the people in the health center don't want to interact with people who are deaf, for example.
Então eu gostaria de trazer essa reflexão que possamos olhar, temos um olho mais abrangente para essa camada que é de adolescentes e jovens com alguma deficiência.
So she's saying that we should include all youth with handicaps.
Mas para trazer também uma das dificuldades, um dos desafios que nós temos é com relação à violência baseada no gênero e o assédio existente nas escolas.
So she's saying that also one of the problems is the violence, gender-based violence and the violence, sexual abuse occurring in schools.
Eu acho que o abuso sexual é uma das formas mais ruins que é de violação dos direitos das raparigas.
So it's the worst violation of human rights is sexual abuse.
Nós, como gesto de resultado, estamos cá, nós as embaixadoras, vamos fazer referências, advogando para que os direitos das raparigas possam ser conhecidos.
So she's saying as a women ambassador, she wants to advocate for the rights of safety and integrity.
Thank you very much. Youth
give us they've got 30 seconds each to give us take-home messages or just some sentences that they would like us to know about. Thank you. 30 seconds. Yes, we are starting with Ambassador Brett. Thank you.
I just want to really thank you for the time and space, and I really want to take my opportunity to thank the Dreams team from OGAC. Jana and Tata and Nora, who you know, we only are 3, but they are 3 amazing women dedicated to women around the globe, and I think it's a pleasure to be able to work with them, and hopefully it's a pleasure for you. They're your contact. Please let us know how we can be better.
My take-home message is that young people are the best people to be involved within the HIV response if you really want to speak about the issues to do with adolescent young people within the HIV response.
Thank you. And for me, my take-home message or the game changer is leave no one behind. I've always said this and I'll continue to say it. When it's election time, even the hardest to reach district, T-shirts for campaigning, they get there. But why is it so hard to get HIV prevention commodities in those spaces for adolescent people? So what we need to see is a real political commitment to the people with the money, the funders. If it means that you may twist the arms of our governments for them to do something, then be it. To our governments, we are here to work with you so that you deliver what we need. Bread and beer finds its way in those hard-to-reach areas, but why are condoms or HIV commodities or services not being accessible? And this has to change. Thank you.
I think we want to say thank you to implementing partners for the Dreams program because it's been a game changer. We can see that there's a lot of progress in the few years that it's been running. But I also just want to echo on the fact that we need to be in a safe environment. We really need a safe society. During these days of activism against gender-based violence, I think a lot of our nations, we've noticed that a lot of adolescent girls and young women have been victims of sexual harassment. Every day in the news, there's a story about a girl being raped, or a girl being burnt. And so I think we really have to do whatever we can to ensure that girls have access to a safe environment. We really need to feel safe. Thank you.
She would like to leave a message saying that their voices as young women should be heard.
E não podia deixar de agradecer também pela existência do Dreams, que é uma iniciativa que ajuda muitos adolescentes jovens, mas também é importante avisar que existem mais intervenções ligadas aos adolescentes jovens.
So she wants to thank the Dreams Initiative, but she's saying there's other things that the youth need also.
E seja acesso à informação, seja acesso aos serviços de saúde para os adolescentes jovens. E nada de nós sem eles.
So she's doing nothing for us without us.
Well, I guess I would like to thank these young people, you beautiful daughters of Africa, and you too, Cedric. It is a privilege to listen to you and to be inspired by you. Keep using your voices and do hold us accountable because you know your reality is best and you know what works for you.
Hello everyone. I would like to thank the Dreams partners which are giving us information on the basic things we need to know as adolescent girls and young women. And I would also like to thank USA and TEPFO for the support they're giving us as adolescent girls and young women.
Thank you very much. So we were supposed to have questions from can see, we don't really have time, but I like maybe to do it in a very special way. Do we still have our activists who almost hijacked our session? We have only one. I would like one just to stand with the banner so that we can keep that message. And this is the way to engage our audience today. Yes. You can just send me, yeah. Thank you so much. I think this represents the audience, but if you still have any question, Athena Network, White Plus, and Dream Ambassador, you can meet them in Global Village on the exhibition center. They will all be there, and you can ask them any question you have. I would like to invite our chair to wrap up this session, and also to thank my colleague Musa for a wonderful as a wonderful commentator of the session. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, our co-moderator. The best way to execute my leadership role is to listen to the young people, says Dr. Paula. Consult the young women on the advocacy of adolescent girls and get to understand their needs deeper. I'm glad to hear that there are interventions that are being enabled by PEPFAR, as Ambassador Deborah said, to be able to ensure that the voices of the young people are heard and acted upon. Special thanks and appreciation to the activists who almost stopped our session. Your voices have been heard, and Ambassador Deborah reacted to them immediately, and I'm sure she's going to keep the conversation going. We really need to appreciate Dreams for ensuring that as much as we're making baby steps, we have to appreciate that there is change. We have seen the Dreams ambassadors, we have seen the testimonies. They've been able to be economically empowered. This tells a lot. When it comes to transactional sex, there is change. Baby steps, but slowly we're getting there. HIV, 0 new HIV rates. Let's appreciate that young people's voices, strength, power are being appreciated. By allowing the young people to sit before you, discuss issues concerning them, raise their voices, feel that the voices are going to break the hierarchy of some people dominating the spaces and not giving the young people the spaces to hear the voices is really critical. And I really want to thank the panelists for finding time to be able to hear the voices. The voices have been heard. Support for the youth participation in decision-making spaces must shift from tokenism to meaningful engagements, and youth participation in the community response to HIV must be acknowledged, nurtured, and adequately resourced. That is the message that we need to take home. It is very clear that participation and inclusion is a core human rights principle. Moreover, the sustainability of HIV response highly depends on our capacity to reach to the most marginalized, including young people, to address the specific needs. The effectiveness of programs and intervention targeting young people can be ensured with the full participation of young people in their design, monitoring, and implementation. As distinguished guests, this brings us to the end of our special session, Nothing for Us Without Us. I wish to offer special thanks to Her Excellency First Lady of Botswana, Ambassador Deborah Beggs, and Dr. Paula for having time to attend our session. I wish to thank all of you for finding time to attend and participate. It is my hope and belief that we are about to walk out of this room feeling more informed and greatly empowered. Let's keep this conversation going with beyond ICASA. Let's continue involving and engaging the young people at all levels in the fight against HIV and stigma. Special thanks to our panelists and all the sponsors who made this session possible. Thank you. I officially Thank you. I officially close our special session.